Hello, I'm R.A. Spratt, and I want to welcome people joining us this week on the Yoto podcast platform. Now, just so you know, most of the bedtime stories I tell here are standalone stories. But over the last year, we have been dipping in and out of the epic story of Odysseus, the hero from ancient Greek mythology. And this week, I'm going to be telling the second last installment of that tale. So if you can jump in right here, that'll be fine. I'm sure you'll pick it all up. But if you did want to go back to the beginning and start from the first episode, you can search back through the episodes. The first episode's called Odysseus, as told by Nanny Piggins, and it dropped on January 8th, 2025. Or you can go back and listen to any of the other episodes. You're going to find fairy tales, myths, legends, and mysteries. I hope you enjoy them all. Now let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Bedtime Stories with me, R.A. Spratt. Okay, before we get into today's story, I've got some news, some updates. I know we just launched my book, Epically Good Greek Myths, but my intense publishers have got me bringing out 2, maybe even 3 books this year. So it's actually only like 2.5 months till the next one comes out. And the next book I've got coming out is Friday Barnes 13 in Plain Sight. And the reason I am telling you this now is because tickets have just gone on sale for the book launch. I'm going to be hosting a book launch in a theatre in Melbourne. It's going to be on the 7th of June at 2 p.m. at the Round Theatre. It's actually in the Studio, which is one of the smaller theatres at the Round Theatre, which is in Melbourne in the suburb of Nunawading. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And there's a really awesome bookshop there called The Kids Bookshop, and they'll be selling the books. So if you are in Melbourne, please come along, please get tickets. I'll put a link in the show notes, or you can just Google the Round Theatre Melbourne and their website will come up and you'll be able to find it. It's on the 7th of June at 2 p.m. And you buy the tickets through the theatre's website. It'll be awesome if you could come. Obviously, I'll be doing like an hour-long show. I'll be reading from the new book. I'll be explaining Friday Barnes and where all the ideas come from. And there'll be a chance for you to ask questions. And afterwards, of course, there will be a signing opportunity. And also, the book launch will be like 3 days before the book is officially on sale. So if you come, you will be able to get a copy of Friday Barnes 13 in Plain Sight 3 days before it's available in any of the other bookshops. So, I would love to see you there. That's the official big book launch. I might be doing an event the following weekend in my hometown of Bowral with a local bookshop. I probably will, but that hasn't been organised yet. But I just want you to let you know now because the tickets are on sale and the theatre only sits 200 people. So if you want to come, jump online and get tickets. All right, let's get into it. So as I said, I was talking about the new Friday Barnes book coming out. And the reason that this is front of mind is because I have to go to Sydney tomorrow to record the audiobook. So I thought, normally the day before I record an audiobook, they send me a copy of the final pages so I can practice, but they only edited them on Friday. And so they didn't remember to send me final pages. So I've been sitting around all weekend. I've actually been painting the house and things like that. I haven't had a chance to practice because I didn't have the pages to practice. So I was thinking, I should start getting everyone enthusiastic about the Friday Barnes book coming out. So I thought, how about this week I do a story from a Friday Barnes book? Now, I know this podcast is mainly Nanny Piggins fans, so I'll give you a bit of an update on what's going on. So I'm up to book 13, and at the end of book 12, the cliffhanger is that Binky and his girlfriend, Princess Ingrid, well, his fiancée at this stage, Princess Ingrid, have gone missing. They've been kidnapped. So the book that I've just written that will come out in June that's the starting point. So I was thinking, what reading should I do? I'm going in to do the audiobook. And I thought, well, how about I go back to the beginning when Ingrid first appeared in the series? And I was thinking she appeared in book 4, but when I went back through my books, she actually appears in book 3. So I was looking through book 3, trying to find a suitable reading with Ingrid in it. And most of the Ingrid chapters, we would spoil the book and spoil the plot of the book for me to read it to you. So I am going to read you a chapter from book 3, but I don't know that Ingrid actually makes an appearance in it. But anyway, it's a chapter from the book with Ingrid in it. So it's going to be chapter 7 from book 3. And it's called A Dangerous Letter. Here we go. Several days later, Friday was sitting in geography class, totally ignoring the lesson. She already knew as much as she wanted to about the imports and exports of Borneo, so Friday sat in the back row reading a Dorothy L. Sayers murder mystery where the victim had died of being forced to listen to loud bell ringing. Friday found this highly improbable. If loud, unpleasant noises could kill a person, people would be dropping dead from close proximity to leaf blowers all the time. Barnes! Friday's head snapped up. Mr. McLean was glaring at her. Everyone in the room had turned round to stare. Mr. McLean had evidently been calling her name for some time. Timber and palm oil, said Friday. What? Asked Mr. McLean. The chief exports of Borneo, said Friday. Isn't that what we were discussing? No, said Mr. McLean. I have a note here saying that you're required immediately in the library. What have I done now? Asked Friday. I don't know, said Mr. McLean. Maybe you've irritated the librarian as much as you've irritated me. I doubt it, said Friday. I'm banned from entering the library, so she doesn't get to spend as much time with me as you do. Lucky her, said Mr. McLean. Friday got up and started packing her things into her bag. Melanie did the same. Where do you think you're going, Pelly? Asked Mr. McLean. With Friday, said Melanie. I didn't think you'd miss me. I wasn't paying attention to what you were saying anyway. Mr. McLean rolled his eyes. Don't any of you have any appreciation for the subject of geography? Of course we do, said Melanie kindly. We appreciate that it's nowhere near as unpleasant as maths. Friday and Melanie were soon hurrying across the quadrangle. The truth was, Mr. McLean was almost as apathetic as Melanie, so he was quite glad to have 2 less students to teach for the remainder of the lesson. As they came to the turn in the landing, Friday looked up to see the librarian standing outside the door waiting for them. The librarian had taken an intense dislike to Friday from the moment she had met her. Over the months, getting to know Friday's personality had only made matters worse. Friday assumed she would be yelled at for some misdemeanour and that the librarian was waiting outside so she wouldn't be allowed to sully the interior of the library with her presence. What the librarian actually said came as a complete shock. At last, you're here. You're happy to see me? Asked Friday. Obviously not, said the librarian. You're still the most obnoxious child in the school. But I need your help. You've got a funny way of asking for it, said Melanie. Usually when people want something, they're nice about it. It's all right, Melanie, said Friday. It's a long way to ratchet your emotions down from intense hatred all the way to nice. If I'm not mistaken, the librarian has, with some struggle, managed to subdue her feelings from hatred down to loathing. I'm prepared to give her credit for her effort. You don't make it easy, said the librarian, rubbing her forehead. Just hearing your voice makes my chest spasm with rage. Why don't we focus on the problem then, said Friday. How can I help you? Mr. Henderson had his Year 11 aerodynamics class in here, said the librarian, and when they left, a letter had gone missing. I need you to find that letter. A letter, said Melanie. You mean written on paper? I didn't know people still did that. It's an old letter, said the librarian, a valuable collector's item. It was a letter written by Marie Curie. Friday gasped. I love Marie Curie. Really, said Melanie, but I thought you loved Ian Wainscott. No, Marie Curie was an early 20th century scientist, said Friday. She's my role model. She won 2 Nobel Prizes, one for physics and one for chemistry. She also drove a van around the front line in World War I, giving injured soldiers X-rays, a technology only possible thanks to her breakthrough in isolating radium and polonium. And in perhaps her greatest breakthrough for women's rights, she arranged free childcare for herself by getting her father-in-law to look after her children. Oh, that Marie Curie, said Melanie, nodding. I've seen pictures of her. She's the one whose hair looks like a bird's nest made by a very angry bird. Yes, that's her, agreed Friday. Well, the school had a handwritten letter by her, said the librarian, and it's gone. What was the letter about? Asked Friday. It was a letter to the Nobel Prize Committee, said the librarian. They'd asked her not to attend the awards ceremony in person because they thought the way she was conducting her personal life was scandalous, so she wrote them a very rude letter back. Were there swear words? Asked Melanie. I don't know, said the librarian. I don't speak French, but there was a very graphic description of where they could put their Nobel Prize, which demonstrated that Marie Curie had an impressive knowledge of anatomy as well as physics and chemistry. Sounds like a really good letter, said Friday. Of course I'll help you find it. Could you explain how it came to go missing? Usually it's kept locked in the archive, said the librarian. We wouldn't want students to get anywhere near it. Heaven forbid they might learn something, said Friday. But the head of science asked me to get it out so he could show it to your father, said the librarian. He thought Dr. Barnes would be interested. Poor, naive Mr. Brezhnev, said Friday, shaking her head. Little does he realise that my father is such a snob when it comes to physics that he considers Marie Curie to be a chemist and therefore a second-rate hack. Anyway, continued the librarian, I got the letter out and put it on the circulation desk, ready for Mr. Brezhnev to collect. Then I continued about my duties. 5 minutes later, when Mr. Brezhnev came to pick it up, the letter was gone. Could it have blown away? Asked Friday, in a gust from the door. No, said the librarian. I set a stapler on top of the letter so it couldn't blow away. Someone must have moved the stapler intentionally and picked the letter up. But who would want to steal a letter by Marie Curie? Asked Melanie. I would, said Friday. The librarian and Melanie looked at her. But of course I didn't, said Friday. I didn't even know the school had one. So it must have been some other obsessive science nerd, said Melanie. Your father? Said the librarian. Dad wouldn't steal, said Friday. Are you sure about that? Asked the librarian. When Friday thought about it, she realised she wasn't really sure. She spent so little time with her father, she didn't really have any insight into what motivated him. He's certainly obsessive about science, said Friday, but I don't know that he's materialistic enough to want to own a specific artefact. Didn't you say he bought Einstein's toothbrush on an online auction? Said Melanie. Yes, conceded Friday, but that was only because his own toothbrush had worn out and he needed a new one. It didn't occur to him that a toothbrush from the supermarket might be cheaper. Maybe someone stole the letter because they wanted to sell it for the money, suggested Melanie. But so few students here need money, said Friday. Except Ian, said Melanie. With his father in jail and his assets frozen, Ian could use the cash. Yes, said Friday. An obviously valuable letter just sitting in the open would be quite a temptation, but I don't think he would. Because you love him even more than Marie Curie, said Melanie. No, because students don't have internet access, said Friday. He'd have nowhere to sell it. Well, it's gone and someone took it, said the librarian. Maybe it was the Pimpernel, said Melanie. Who? Asked Friday. The Pimpernel, said Melanie. That's what everyone's calling the thief who's been stealing everything because they're so elusive. Because no one's seen them and no one knows their identity. That's an unexpectedly literate reference for the students here, said Friday. I wouldn't have thought anyone had read The Scarlet Pimpernel. Of course not, said Melanie, but there's a film version and the headmaster showed it in the dining hall last year as an end-of-term treat. But the Scarlet Pimpernel left a calling card, said Friday. The thief hasn't been leaving calling cards. Perhaps our Pimpernel fell asleep before they got to that bit in the movie, said Melanie. Not everyone naps as much as you, said Friday. I know, said Melanie, but they should try it. It's very nice. While it gratifies me that you're having a literary discussion, said the librarian, can you please get on with the investigation? Of course. We'd better inspect the scene of the crime, said Friday. They all stepped into the library. Friday could immediately see the pink and black stapler sitting on the circulation desk. It was right there, said the librarian. Who was in the library at the time? Asked Friday. Just Mr. Henderson in his Year 11 aerodynamics class, said the librarian. The students were sitting an exam. Mr. Henderson couldn't use his own classroom because he dropped a thermometer in there and a hazmat team were called in to remove the mercury. Mr. Henderson is very passionate about science, said Friday. He must have been your first suspect. He was, agreed the librarian, but I noticed the letter was missing before he left, and I searched him thoroughly before I let him go. How thoroughly? Asked Friday. Very, very, said the librarian. Are you allowed to do that? Asked Melanie. It's my library, said the librarian. I make the rules. But surely you're still subject to normal laws of human rights, said Melanie. Humans can forfeit their rights in my library, said the librarian. They do so all the time. Friday made a mental note that the librarian was clearly more insane than she'd previously realised. May I see your waste paper bin? Asked Friday. What for? Asked the librarian. I'm looking for evidence, said Friday. The librarian showed Friday the waste paper bin at the end of the circulation desk. It was a large round bin full of crumpled paper. Friday peered inside, then picked up the whole bin and tipped the contents over the desk. What are you doing? Demanded the librarian. Look at the mess you've made. You want me to find the letter, don't you? Said Friday. But it won't be in there, said the librarian. Nobody would steal it and throw it away. No, agreed Friday, but that's not what I'm looking for. Aha, here we go. Friday picked up a scrunched-up ball of paper and started flattening it out. What is it? Asked Melanie. The aerodynamics test, said Friday. She glanced through the questions. What are you looking for? Asked the librarian. A motive, said Friday. She turned the page over to read the last question. Oh dear, this isn't good. What is it? Asked the librarian. "The last question," said Friday, turning the paper around so the librarian could read it. It asked the student to design a paper airplane. "I don't see the significance," the librarian broke off when she did see the significance. "But they wouldn't, surely." "The letter was lying there on the desk," said Friday. "It was in French. Most students don't read French. They barely read English. Teenagers are thoughtless. They would have been talking amongst themselves about the exam, discussing the last question. One of them spots the piece of paper on the desk and without a second thought picks it up to test their design." The librarian clasped her hand to her mouth. "Oh, that's horrifying! But if they folded it and made it into a paper airplane, then they would have—" She swallowed, struggling to say the words. "Thrown it." "Launched it, yes," agreed Friday. "It could be anywhere by now," said the librarian. "Yes," said Friday, "but it will be very easy to find." "It will?" asked Melanie. "One piece of paper in the entire school grounds?" "Yes," said Friday, because it wasn't an ordinary piece of paper. It was a letter by Marie Curie, the first person to isolate radium. Her daily work constantly exposed her to radiation. She didn't realise the danger. It killed her in the end. And her papers, everything she wrote on in her laboratory, is to this day still radioactive. In France, her notebooks are kept in a lead-lined box. "But I picked it up!" exclaimed the librarian. "Yes, you did," said Friday. "You should probably wash your hands." The librarian ran for the bathroom. "So how are we going to find it?" asked Melanie. "The way you find anything radioactive," said Friday, "with a Geiger counter." "Let me guess," said Melanie. "You've got one in your backpack." "As it happens, I do," said Friday. Chapter 8. Letter Tracking. The girls were soon tracking the radiation signature across the school. Friday was concentrating hard on the Geiger counter's dial as the needle flickered back and forth. When she got to the centre of the quadrangle, she froze, turning one way, then another. "What's the problem?" asked Melanie. "There appear to be 2 radiation readings," said Friday. "Do you think the school could own 2 letters by Marie Curie?" asked Melanie. "I doubt it," said Friday, "but there's no way of telling which reading is coming from the letter." "Sure there is," said Melanie. "We'll just have to eeny, meeny, miny, mo." "I've studied postgraduate level probability," said Friday. "I'm not using eeny, meeny, miny, mo to make decisions." "Why not?" asked Melanie. "Are you worried it'll make better life decisions than you? I bet eeny, meeny, miny, mo wouldn't have let you choose that cardigan for a start." "Let's go this way," said Friday, following the radiation reading that led towards the social science building. "You did eeny, meeny, miny, mo silently in your head, didn't you?" said Melanie. "I did not," said Friday, blushing. "I can tell when you're lying," said Melanie as she followed her. The reading led them right up to the front door of a storage room. "Well, there's definitely something radioactive in there," said Friday. "Should we get a hazmat team?" asked Melanie. "It's not that radioactive," said Friday. "There's radioactive material in smoke detectors and people don't avoid those." "I do," said Melanie. "Dreadful noisy things. I'd rather be on fire." "I'm going to kick the door down," said Friday. "Why don't you pick the lock?" asked Melanie. "There's no time for that," said Friday. "Who knows what damage they could be doing to the letter as we speak? They could be folding extra airfoils and tearing bits off to alter the weight balance." "Do you even know how to kick down a door?" asked Melanie, as Friday took a few steps back. "Of course I do," said Friday. "I read all about it online. It's just a matter of simple physics. Mass times acceleration plus the force of momentum meeting a stationary object. Oh, and you have to yell really loudly to focus your chi." "Isn't that a type of tea?" asked Melanie. "No, you're thinking of chai," said Friday. "Your chi is your energy." "Okay," said Melanie. "I'll put my fingers in my ears and you can yell as loud as you want." "Yeah!" screamed Friday. She launched herself forward and slammed the ball of her foot into the door just below the lock. The lock smashed out through the frame, splintering the wood. The door flung open. Friday overbalanced and landed flat on her face. The door hit the wall and bounced back, whacking Friday in the side of the head. "Ow!" said Friday. "Hello, Mr. McLean," said Melanie. "What on earth are you doing here?" demanded Mr. McLean. Friday looked up to see Mr. McLean wearing nothing but a swimsuit and sun goggles as he struggled to sit up on a sunbed. Ultraviolet light from the sunbed bathed the room. "I think we found our radiation source," said Friday. "Why do you think Mr. McLean was reading Marie Curie's letter as he lay on the sunbed?" asked Melanie. "Excuse me," said Mr. McLean, clutching a towel around his beige-coloured chest. "A man has a right to suntan, doesn't he?" "I don't think that's one of the legal rights listed in the Constitution," said Friday, "but I certainly don't think it's illegal either. Just strange and extremely vain to be secretly acquiring one in a closet." "Well, I have to unwind somehow after an hour of Year 7 geography," said Mr. McLean. "Oh, is geography over?" asked Melanie. "That's a shame. That means we're missing music now. I have some of my best naps in music." "We've got a letter to find," said Friday. "We'll have to double back and trace the other reading." Soon Friday and Melanie were using the Geiger counter again to follow the radiation reading across the school. "It seems to be leading us towards the administration building," said Melanie. "Of course," said Friday. "The clock tower." They both looked up to see the tallest structure in the school, the clock tower. It was the architectural centrepiece of the administration building. "It would be the perfect place to launch a paper airplane," said Friday. "Oh dear," said Melanie. "It's a windy day. That letter could end up anywhere." "We've got to get up there," said Friday. Unfortunately, Friday and Melanie were even worse at running up a spiral staircase than they were at running in a straight line. It took some time and a lot of gasping for breath before they arrived at the top. Friday flung open the door only to have it thrown back at her face by the force of the wind, the door hitting her in the forehead. "Ow!" said Friday again. "At least it was a different part of your head this time," said Melanie. "Better to have 2 small bumps than 1 big lump." "Tell that to my cerebellum," said Friday. She clambered to her feet and looked out over the balustrade. 3 boys were sitting at the far end on the ridgepole. They each had a paper airplane in their hand. One of the airplanes was the distinctive pale blue of early 20th century French stationery. The boys started to count. "1, 2, began the boys. "No!" cried Friday. "3!" The 3 boys launched their paper planes. One spun in a loop-de-loop, and a gust of wind pushed it back so that it hit the owner in the eye. Another plane flew out a few feet, then the weight of its nose tipped it over, and it spiraled straight down to the ground. But the fine quality of French paper meant that Marie Curie's letter fared much better in aeronautical form. The crisp folds and firm weight of the stationery helped the paper airplane to pierce the air and be carried by a powerful gust out over the school. "What a beautifully made plane," admired Friday. She couldn't help but appreciate the physics and geometry. "Where's it going?" asked Melanie. The plane kept gliding on, defying gravity with its pure aerodynamics. But then the wind slowly died and the airplane began to glide down towards the polo field. "I hope it doesn't hit anyone," said Melanie. "It's only a paper airplane," said Friday. "A radioactive paper airplane," said Melanie. "True," conceded Friday. In the distance they saw a horse canter out onto the polo field. "Oh no," said Friday. The paper airplane was heading straight for the horse's bottom. Friday cupped her hands around her mouth and called as loudly as she could, "Move your horse!" The rider turned around. It was Princess Ingrid. She looked up and saw Friday. Melanie had squealed and ducked down. The paper airplane speared into the horse's backside, causing it to flinch with shock, then rear up. Princess Ingrid was surprised, but you don't get to be the Princess of Norway without knowing a thing or two about horsemanship. She crouched forward into the saddle, shortened the reins and held on tight as the horse bolted straight across the field and plunged into the forest beyond. "I think we've just caused an international incident," said Melanie. "We didn't do anything," said Friday. "No," said Melanie, "but when a valuable handwritten letter from the world's greatest female scientist gets ruined and an incredibly beautiful European princess gets carted off by an angry animal, both at the same time, someone has to spend time in detention." Friday sighed. She knew Melanie was right. "Let's go and see if we can salvage the letter." The girls trudged out onto the polo field and found the letter. It had been stomped into a big pile of horse manure. "I don't think it'll be worth much on eBay now," said Friday, as she pulled on gloves to protect herself from the radiation, and gingerly picked the letter up by the one manure-free corner. "That is the one! I want the girl arrested!" Friday looked up to see the now very dishevelled and extremely angry Princess Ingrid pointing at her from the great height of her horse. Her bodyguard was galloping over from the stables on a horse of his own. "She is the one who attacked Maximus," said the princess. "No, the paper airplane hit the horse's gluteus maximus," corrected Friday. "Maximus is the horse's name," said the princess. "You named your horse after a bottom?" asked Melanie. "Detain her!" yelled the princess. "Detain them both!" "You and you must come with me," said the bodyguard, sliding off his horse. "We shall report to the headmaster." "And make sure he reports them to the police," said the princess. "They're probably anarchists or communists. They no doubt attacked me because they hate royalty." "Well, I didn't before," said Melanie, "but I'm beginning to now." The bodyguard grabbed them each by an elbow and started leading them back up to the school. Ian Wainscott and the rest of the polo team trotted out onto the field. "In trouble again, Barnes?" asked Ian. It took some time to explain everything to the headmaster, then to round up everyone who had touched the letter, the 3 boys, the librarian and the horse, and arrange for them all to be decontaminated. The letter itself would never be the same again. "Are you upset to see an artefact by your hero get ruined?" asked Melanie. "No," said Friday. "Given the sentiments of the letter, I think Marie Curie would have approved of having it stomped in horse manure. I bet she wished she thought of doing it herself before she sent it." The headmaster's parting instructions to Friday had been to stay away from Princess Ingrid. "But she lives in the room next door to me," protested Friday. "I don't care how you do it," said the headmaster. "Just figure it out. It's bad enough with all the rampant criminal activity that goes on in the school and hysterical students thinking there's some pimpernel running loose. I don't want an international incident as well." "It wasn't my fault the paper airplane hit her horse," argued Friday. "You were involved in an incident that desecrated a historical artefact by a scientific heroine of Poland and France while assaulting the buttocks of a horse being ridden by a Norwegian princess. There is barely a country in Europe that you haven't rubbed up the wrong way today." "I try to be quiet and go unnoticed," said Friday. "That's the whole reason I wear brown cardigans, so I blend in." "Whatever you're doing, it's not working," said the headmaster. "So stop it." "All right, if you say so," said Friday, "although I do find it curious that when the plane hit the princess's horse, her bodyguard wasn't there. I wonder what he was up to in the stables." "Well, I don't," said the headmaster, "and if you know what's good for you, you'll keep your nose out of it as well." The end. Okay, well, we'll leave it there. I hope you enjoyed that story. And if you want to check out the rest of that book, it's book 3, Friday Barnes' Big Trouble, which is like the orangey one with a picture of Friday Barnes with a glass to her ear listening against a wall. All right. And as a reminder, I was reading that today because the book launch for Friday Barnes 13 in Melbourne will be coming up on the 7th of June, and tickets have just gone on sale in the last week. So Google the Round Theatre in Melbourne, Nunawading, and if you want to get tickets, get onto it because there's only 200 seats in that theatre. All right. Well, that's it for now. Until next time, goodbye. Hello, it's me again. If you enjoyed listening to Bedtime Stories with R.A. Spratt, it would be really helpful if you could like, subscribe, follow, and or review the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to now. Every little one of those digital affirmations helps, and the bigger this podcast gets, the more I can justify procrastinating from my real job to keep bringing these stories to you. Thank you.